Okay, thank you very much, Sean, and good morning to everyone. I had said that we should just call my name and let me start talking, but I guess you
Yeah,
had to do justice in some form.
yes, yeah, a big fish, sir. We
Uh,
can't just introduce you just casually like that. Thank you
not a
very
problem.
much.
And thank you for the honor, and thank you for the opportunity. It's a pleasure to be here. Something interesting. I am from Ogun State, so the opportunity to come and have a conversation with the institute in my state of origin, of course, has that extra special feel for me, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Um, I will be spending a couple of minutes, the next few minutes, giving some sense of my own thoughts with the topic at hand. And for every time I get the opportunity to have conversations, I always like to give some disclaimers before we start and, just set some context so that, we're relatively clear as the conversations are going, some reference points. Nothing I am going to say today or nothing that we're going to converse about today is new. I mean, there's nothing you would hear from me that hasn't been said before. There's nothing if you Google the topic and do your research, you won't stumble upon. So it's not that we're going to hear anything, new or, isn't in HR conversations today. What we'll just be trying to do is highlight certain areas and use that as a basis to share relatable experiences. For someone like me that, by the grace of God, I've had the opportunity to be in a number of different organizations, I can bring some perspective to bear. Another thing is that I recognize that we are at different levels in practice and are practicing from different perspectives. Some of us are HR leaders, some of us are managers, some of us are officers, some of us are not even practicing HR, but we have HR backgrounds and we're just close to the practice of human resource management. So I will try as much as possible to make it easy and relatable without going into heavy technical jargons that end up even causing more confusion. I'm one of the people that I go for trainings, I go for these sessions, and you scribble, 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 and you think you have a lot that you can immediately go into your organization to execute. And when you go back to work day one, you just realize that it's on a level far higher than anything that you're able to do. Maybe because your environments are not, accommodating of what you have learned, or clearly there isn't a connect with reality. So while I'll be talking about certain things, I would like for us to continuously have that mindset of your individual context and the time that you are faced today. There is no guarantee that every single thing we talk about you'll be able to execute today, tomorrow, or even at all. But it is to be conscious and appreciative of, the conversation. And if for any reason you find yourself exposed to opportunities that can be grounds for you to explore these things, then it would have served its purpose as well. But at the end of the day, is to be able to have that continuous reinforcement of these ideas in our minds and use that as a basis to continue to develop ourselves. So what I would ask for is that as is already happening, let's begin to drop our comments, let's begin to drop our questions, anything that resonates. Let's just be dropping them. I'm seeing the messages as they're dropping. So it would also help me as the flow is going to direct the conversations to wherever they need be. But we can then save our actual questions till the end of the session, where I will now be able to, respond and give a well-rounded response to the questions in such a way that all of us can benefit. So please let's have fun and let's jump into it. So I will be sharing my slides, and please let me know when you can see them. I will be conscious of time. Sean, please can you tell me at what point you would like for us to break for questions so that I'm also guided?
We can have this conversation till 12.
Wow. Okay.
All right.
Will
Yes.
that be questions inclusive?
No, no, just flow till 12 and then we can do like
Okay, so
15 minutes question Q&A.
Okay, I think that's comforting. It means I can talk because sometimes I just get to talk, and I lose track of time. But that means that we can get to talk, but I'll be conscious of time and see where that takes us. So I'll be
Right.
sharing my screen now. And please let me know when you can see my screen. Please confirm
Okay.
if you can see my screen.
Yes, you're live.
Okay. So yes, the conversation really is about strategic HR in the digital age. And we all know that right now we are neck deep in what is called the digital transformation, whether you want to be part of it or not. There was a while when, it was a good to have for organizations to consider, transitioning to digital technologies and wanting to use it as a sense of competitive advantage. But now it has become a question of digitalize or die, whether you like it or not, at whatever level, irrespective of wherever you're going, you have to have embraced the digital technologies because you clearly will not be able to function, talk less of add value, and be at the top of whatever it is that you're trying to present as value in all spheres of life. And we can talk about digital transformation over and over and over again. There's so much literature on, the concept, the mindset, the strategies, the tools, the technologies, and when you talk about AI, when you talk about artificial, when you talk about machine learning, when you talk about data analytics, there's so much, and there are so many facets and subsectors of digital transformation that the conversation cannot end if we're being really honest. And then, of course, resultantly, even in the HR space, there's so much we're talking about in terms of how all of us are evolving in line with this digital imperative. And me personally, I think that the most important thing when we talk about digital transformation are people, because at the end of the day, it is people that bring to life anything and everything that is a direction. When you talk about money, it is people that spend money, it is people that they make money, it's people that decide where to allocate money to and all. So it's not a coincidence that people say that human capital is the most important asset of any organization, because all of what you have, it's people that eventually utilize any other thing that exists. So it stands to reason that when we talk about digital transformation, really, it is about how people embrace what is happening and express in such a form that ultimately you transition from analog to digital, because that's what really it is. How are you, on one hand, doing things in an old or traditional way? And how are you on that journey towards adopting the digital technologies, the digital mindsets, and all of what is important, to be able to thrive today in the world of work? And with people, definitely recognizes the role that we as HR people play in that digital transformation, because at the end of the day, all of what we do is about getting the best out of people, utilizing people. And if we're saying that is transitioning from analog to digital, it stands to reason that we as HR leaders are at the forefront in hiring people that have digital capabilities. We are the ones that will determine what roles need to be played. In the adopting of those digital tools, we are the ones that will be skilling our people to be able to adopt these digital technologies. When it is about the culture and recognizing that there are better ways to do things, it's us as HR people that will be the progressives in terms of embracing this new culture and all of the different things that occur. So I will be spending a couple of minutes just speaking about some areas that I think as HR people we need to be conscious of. Of course, starting from understanding our role in driving digital transformation. As HR people, and I think this is important for us, what are the digital skills and capabilities that we should be developing within the HR function? And because digital transformation is about continuous learning and innovation, what are the key points in creating that culture that encourages this sense of continuous learning? Because that is what would ultimately be happening as you transform. you are unlearning, you are relearning, and all of the things that, as HR people, we are very quick to outline as cliches. And then at the end of the day, at your level, in your environment, irrespective of what you're doing regarding digital transformation, what are the indicators of the impact that HR has on the things that are happening at the organization? Because we need to recognize that while I am saying we are advocates and champions of this transformation, ultimately it is an everybody thing. Everybody has a role to play. It's not the leaders, it's not HR, it's not supervisors, it's everybody. And what we are doing as HR, we need to be able to say that yes, it directly contributing to whatever it is that the organization is looking to achieve. So I just have bullet points, nothing fancy, because I think the conversations and the bullet points will really drive the insights that are important. And in understanding the role of HR in driving digital transformation, I've tried to look at it from three perspectives: basic employee experience and engagement, talent acquisition and management, and then performance management. Because again, in trying to make this relatable, I'm asking ourselves, what are the things that we are tasked with on a daily basis? And this is beyond helping the organization define its digital transformation strategy, which of course is the role of those of us that are HR leaders. And because I wasn't so sure whether this was a forum of leaders alone and all, I just thought to look at it from that broad perspective. And of course, like I mentioned, the conversations will never end. But as HR professionals and in the work that we do within HR, I believe these are key three areas that we can have these conversations on and, share insights. And basically it's saying that in our mandate to manage and optimize the employee experience, in our mandate to drive employee engagement in our organizations and ensure that our people are motivated, engaged, and are keen to want to commit to the organizations that they're part of, we need to be seen to be enhancing this experience and engagement levels through digital initiatives. It is important that we are recognizing that there are a lot more tools that make life a lot easier in the HR practices. Looking at, for instance, the typical onboarding process that we know has a very, very huge implication on the success or otherwise of employees joining a business. So with that in mind, that will be the first point of touch. I won't talk about how onboarding is important, but we know that it's the first port of call with organizations and progressive digital savvy employees. The generations that, are digital natives and they take all of this as second nature. From the first point when they are joining your organization, there has to be some sense that yes, you are a lot more conscious about what the digital imperatives are. And there's nothing better than those tools that will ensure that, the onboarding experience is seamless and they already give that positive vibes to the employees as they're about to join you. That's minus the fact that it even makes your life a whole lot easier and I'll talk to acquisition in a bit, you're leveraging on digital platforms and the information that they're sending on those digital platforms are easily transmitted into what you're doing from an onboarding perspective. So you can imagine if I have been part of a recruitment process that my details have been collected from when I started the process. And it is not on day one that you're giving me hard copy forms and I'm having to fill all of the information that you collected during the interview. And then, all of those things that should easily be available to them. So how are we recognizing the digital tools that are available and using it as a basis to begin that employee experience in such a way that that engagement that, is at its highest peak when people join you, they're a lot more excited about what you're doing. We can't overemphasize the role of analytics in the world today, recognizing that data is the new oil. And at its various level, how are we using the data that is available from our interactions with people to drive decision making? It can be as simple as, having information on Excel and keeping the same information over and over and over again till the point where you're able to do something like a simple bar chart and highlight trends that can inform what you do in the future. You can imagine if you're able to say, because you have been gathering the information on employees that join your organization on a monthly basis, and you have been gathering that information for 2, 3 years, you can immediately use that data to suggest that your hiring pattern will increase in the periods where you have seen that you hire more for whatever reason. But if you're not gathering that data, chances are that you will not know. And then going to the other side of the spectrum where you're able to leverage on powerful analytic tools, the use of Power BI, use of all of those other analytic platforms that immediately are throwing those insights to you and are even making suggestions on your behalf in a way that at the end of the day, it seems like you're reading the minds of your people, but actually it's the data that is already telling you the story. It sounded strange 3, 4 years ago when people said with data, you can predict individuals that are likely to leave your organization before they even resign. But it has become clear that it is literally easy to just see, for instance, leave patterns or absenteeism feedback. So there's a lot that data is bringing to the table that is enabling us be able to be more insightful in terms of our decision making. And then, of course, recognizing that we're in an era of co-creation in this whole digital transformation journey. How are you leveraging on technology to get feedback from multiple sources without necessarily running surveys that will make people get tired, right? There are so many ways now that you are asking on the spot what people think about things. You're running opinion polls. You're running survey mood analysis, things that, are different things that you're asking different people at different times. But one way or the other, is providing the information that you can use. In my organization, for instance, we've been able to map the employee experience journey and define a way that I have monthly employee experience scores. And it is based on different sources of information from different respondents at different times. So I am not asking the same thing a month on month. I'm asking from different people, different things that combine to become that employee experience score. That one, I have the actual score that I can use to see whether I'm doing well or not. But also the qualitative feedback that I can use to improve the processes that would ultimately lead to that enhanced employee experience. So I think those are the kind of things that from that perspective, we should need to look at. And then when we look at the core of what we do as HR, which is talent management, from the time an employee joins the organization to when he leaves, it is clear that there are a lot more things that we can begin to leverage from a digital transformation perspective. We've seen how, with the use of AI, you're able to be a lot faster in when you're doing candidate screening, to the point where you are not painstakingly having to go through every single CV. Your system is able to take the application, take the job description, and use artificial intelligence to screen through all of the profiles you have and immediately suggest to you the ones that have the best chances of doing the job if hired. And it makes the whole process easier. From an internal perspective, we know that work is changing at a faster pace. People are desirous of growth and learning new things. People want to know the opportunities that exist in the organizations that they're part of. We are seeing how we're able to make use of solutions that help us drive internal talent mobility and career management on a higher level. And then, of course, from a learning perspective, how it is not a question of HR determining whether I should go on a training or not, or my supervisor just saying every year, you need to go and do Excel. You need to go and do Excel. But all of the information that you have gathered around the individual, the things that we have talked about, career management and the aspirations, we are seeing systems that are able to help the individual chart their learning journey without recourse to HR necessarily being the one scheduling or nominating sessions. So there's so much from a talent management perspective that digital transformations and what we are seeing today can help us, drive a lot faster. And then, of course, when we talk about power performance management, there are organizations that even as they were transiting from a digital perspective, we're even looking at the whole process as a whole. I'm sure we have heard of instances there organizations have discarded performance appraisals. They've discarded the reviews of performance. They are not saying they are not assessing performance anymore. That's not the case. What they are saying is that because they have technology that is able to give them online real-time performance feedback, they are not spending time saying that, okay, it's appraisal time. Everybody go to the appraisal portal and fill your objectives, fill your KPIs, and you are doing all of those plenty things. No, What they are saying is that the performance information is at their fingertips in such a way that they can make real online quick decisions and picking data from various sources and throwing them all in some melting pot where it becomes clear that what you need to do to continue to improve performance. Because as HR people, I believe we're also familiar of when you are reviewing past performance and lagging indicators, whereas you should be focusing on leading indicators that give you insights into how you need to improve, which is where performance management is ultimately evolving into. And then for us, how do we begin to, with all of what I've said, develop the digital skills and capabilities as HR people? I think it even starts from, why are we even doing all of this? Yes, I've talked about digitalize or die. Yes, I've talked about how that's the way the world is going. There's a lot more technology available and blah, blah, blah. But our individual context and our individual aspirations, we need to be clear. So what is in it for us? Right? There are organizations that I know that are a lot more advanced in this transformation journey, and there's some that haven't even started. I was listening to some podcast yesterday, and a guy was talking about how in Nigeria, when it comes to AI, we are not even on the starting line yet. We are just feeling cool with ourselves. Nigerians are sharp people. Nigerians are clever people. We have Nigerians all over the world. But there are countries where they are investing significant amount of resources, energy, time, and people into embracing the new world of digital. And in our respective areas as individuals or in the organizations that we work in, we need to be able to have answered the question, why do we need to undergo this transformation? That will be the foundation for everything and anything that we are able to do and we're able to realistically achieve. And then it is understanding that need in your own individual context that can now begin to guide what gaps exist, right? If you know that you're in an environment that will never get, for instance, any of the platforms I talked about, and you know that in your own world, what you need to do is your own appreciation of digital technologies and what will help for you to be more effective in what you are doing and even in your lives. That can now help you in determining what it is that you need to focus on. So there has to be some gap analysis from a digital perspective to say, okay, this is what is ahead of us based on what we need, and this is how we need to address it. And then, of course, the requisite training and upscaling in those various tools and platforms. And then at the end of the day, with some appreciation on the need, knowing what your gaps are and beginning to develop yourself, then there is that issue of practice. You have to then go ahead and say, with all of this information, I am not keeping it somewhere that one day I'll write an exam and they will tell me and I'll say, AI is defined as the process whereby, no, it is that you are able to, based on all of this, say, for instance, that maybe I'm responsible for developing JDs. I am beginning to use ChatGPT to be able to develop my job descriptions, right? I am the one that's responsible for data analytics. So I want to see how data drives better efficiency for me. I am learning how to use Excel a lot more. I am exploring Power BI, and I'm even, able to generate more insight and gather the data that would ultimately help me in achieving that my objective. So at the end of the day, while knowledge and the acquisition of knowledge is key, we need to find ourselves in the deep end and begin to embrace digital technology and most especially AI today for recruitment, talent management, compensation and benefits, and all of the things that are necessary for us today. Again, within your individual context, I cannot overstress the need to not focus on what everybody is doing just for the sake of it. You need to know thyself, know thy environment, and work out what works best for you in such a way that you can see that progress and ultimately you're bringing value to the table. So, it is clear that we are talking about acquiring new paradigms, acquiring new knowledge, moving on from one state to the other. And honestly, this cannot happen without that sense of continuous learning and innovation. And for it to be sustainable, for it to be long lasting, it has to come natural to us. It has to be a question of who we are, what we do. And we all know that that two statements I just made are the simplest definitions of culture. Who you are and what you do is an indication of your culture and what comes second nature to you, to the point that you don't have to make reference to anything. You don't have to read up something. It is what comes naturally to you. So to be able to embrace all of what I've been speaking about before now, it stands to reason that we're talking about defining an emerging culture. And that culture has continuous learning and innovation at its deepest foundations. So we need to be asking ourselves, for those of us that are particular and know what our culture is. What is our culture today? What is the culture that will enable us embrace this new paradigm? And what are the key elements that we want to begin to propagate? And propagate not just in terms of, you know, value statements, your core mission and vision, and all of those things that are fancy and makes it seem like you are heading in the right direction. But even to those little things like your policies, as a result of going digital, what policies are emerging? For instance, in my organization with the pandemic and the decision that we will continue to be hybrid and not go back to work physically, we had to develop what was called an alternative work arrangement policy, a framework that guides, the basis for people working remotely, the functions that can work remotely. In the event that you want to work from a location outside your normal location, what are the policies and what are the steps and the approvals you need to get and all of those kind of things. So even into policies, you need to begin to ask yourself what needs to change to be able to begin to drive this culture of innovation. What operational activities do you need to bring to bear that will, ignite that innovation spark in all of your employees? There's something we're hoping to be able to do very soon where we want to have what is called hackathons. We're saying that in your work today, without recourse to your supervisor or anybody, is there something that you have been trying to crack that you have not been able to solve that will be of benefit to the organization? And it doesn't even have to be within your department. It could be a question of, I work in HR, but I work with financial control a lot. And maybe when we're doing ITF reimbursements or what have you, we struggle. And we know that we can do this thing better. Within a period of time, we want to get submissions from anybody and everybody. It can be an individual, it can be a department, it could be people working in cross-functional groups. And we want to tell them that, look, present this business case, solve this problem, and come and display this to everybody. Of course, there will be a judge, there will be a panel of judges, and we'll find out who is the best, we'll give some reward. But more crucially, we've got everybody within the organization to start to think about how innovation can solve problems. And with those solutions, we can literally solve the problems that exist. And this is how, one way or the other, it becomes second nature. There are things as simple as saying you're cutting down on your paper consumption, for instance. And you're telling people that, okay, by department, maybe we used to have 5 reams of paper. Do you know what? We're not going to be giving 5 reams of paper anymore. We're going to use only 1 ream. What are you telling people? Don't print. And for them not to print, it means that you're telling them that you can do certain things online. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to print and sign. That simple thing, you'll be amazed at the monumental shift it will go in people recognizing that, for instance, all of these things that we're signing, that we're taking from one office to the other, there are tools that you can do this simply and more efficiently. There are archiving platforms that you can transfer all of your files to, and anybody and everybody with the right permissions can begin to access those things without waiting for somebody that has closed for the day, for instance. So there's a lot more that when you are conscious about from a culture perspective, to the point that people are able to express and see it every day, then it begins to drive that sense that, okay, we are truly changing and we have changed. And as HR, you're just sitting back and then you're just measuring the adoption and learning from the failures. I've talked a lot about upskilling and reskilling because you cannot do without acquiring new skills on this journey. Because we're talking about doing something that you didn't used to do before. So you need to learn. For somebody that doesn't know how to drive, you need to learn how to drive. For someone that doesn't know how to use the computer, he needs to learn how to use the computer. For those that are beginning to move into new roles where, for instance, coding is required, or you are building certain things that data analytics is important, people need to go on the trainings, people need to go on the certification, people need to get coaches, mentors, and all of those kind of things. So we need to be particular about that upskilling and reskilling program as a core fundamental in what we are doing as we emerge. There's something I've had to be part of where we took every single person within the organization on a digital awareness journey program. It was a 2 day program that everybody in the organization had to go through. And what was that program about? Defining digital transformation, saying what it is, understanding the implications, and more or less having a conversation on what it means for you in your work. Some people already have that mindset, for instance, that AI or technology is coming to take jobs away. Honestly, I think technology is coming to take away the jobs of people that are not ready to embrace technology. I just saw a funny post today about I don't want AI to be able to do my art and writing. No, I want AI to be able to do my laundry and dishes so that I can have time for art and writing. Not that I want AI to come and do my art and writing so that I can do my laundry and dishes. What that is saying is that I need AI to do the difficult things so that I can focus on the creative things. So for those of us that are not working creatively, those are the guys that are in threat of AI coming to come and take up their jobs, right? And then I've talked about employee participation and carrying as many people along on the journey. And then, of course, facilitating knowledge sharing during digital platforms. I talked about how jumping into the deep end and, really, really adopting these technologies. So all of what we're talking about, knowledge sharing, about developing ourselves, it has to be on those digital platforms, or else you'll just be, providing theoretical or academic knowledge that nobody will get to use. So it's important that we're walking the talk and we're actually deploying a number of these things. And then I think my final slide will be talking about how we are measuring the impact of all of what I've mentioned. And again, it is recognizing that we are at different stages, different levels, and you need to focus on what matters and not take anything and everything as because they are doing it, we need to. So, what we talk about, what gets measured, get managed, and having to measure what matters. I have on one side attempted to highlight a number of metrics for those of us that are already pretty savvy on measuring the impact of what we do. Over time, in my organization, we've been able to develop a talent management dashboard that more or less, with one slide, shows all of the things that we're measuring that speaks to HR and speaks to the impact of HR on the business today. And if, it is in looking at those metrics that I was able to come up with these high level categories that you can explore in deeper detail, again, based on your context. But of course, these are the areas that you expect digital transformation to affect, and it will be nice to be able to record your progress in those areas. I've talked about employee engagement, how participating in employee engagement surveys or you measuring your own employee experience will go a long way to see whether all of what you're doing is really mattering, right? And how you're adopting this digital culture. Learning, again, from the conversation around continuous learning, building that culture of innovation, you need to be able to show that people are going through those programs and you're tracking completion rate on learning, ROI of learning, impact of learning, and all of those things that ensure that you are going in the right direction and whether you need to adjust. At the end of the day, we are in business to make profits. So how you are measuring productivity and efficiency is important to be sure that since we know that the need for digital transformation is improvement, then with this, you are clear that you are not just investing on those things for investing sake, but you can see the value. And then because now more than ever, well-being is a crucial thing for employees, and that is what they want to get out of being, members of your community. You need to show that, for instance, in adopting digital transformation, your burnout levels are reducing. In adopting digital transformation, you are dealing with lower cases of absenteeism. In dealing with this, people feel like they are able to do more and as well live better lives while they work with you. And then, of course, you as HR, what are you using to measure your productivity? All of the things that you're doing around cost to hire, all of the things that you're doing around HR's productivity and responsiveness are the kind of things that you would also be keen to measure, because you can't be adopting all of those tools if there isn't that resultant effect on your efficiency as HR. And then the kind of things that you can use as methods, right, to gather all of these metrics. It's always nice for you to be able to do an analysis before you start an initiative and after. And it might be qualitative and it can be quantitative. But the idea is that before you start something, you are getting some baseline. And then when you have, you're also measuring to see whether it has had that impact. So it's important to have that sense, because it helps you know what value you are getting from the initiatives that you are running. It's always good to ask around what is working, what are you doing, both again, qualitative and quantitatively. Benchmarking with those in your industry, those in your location, and anybody and everybody that can give insights that can help you improve in the execution of your initiatives. I have mentioned co-creation and how getting feedback, regular, continuous feedback as much as possible from everybody is crucial. So it is important that you are recognizing the role of getting feedback from your people. And you are not just in your exalted chair as HR, thinking that you have all of the answers and you know what you need to do. I don't need to talk about data analytics, because I mean, I've mentioned that a couple of times. With case studies, what I'm trying to say here is that if you are able to, put together compelling stories of success, chances are that people will resonate with them a bit more, and they become the driver of further adoption. So instances where, and storytelling has become a very, very critical tool that helps to carry people along and, get that sense of, belonging and engagement. So if it is as simple as a little success story in one key area, you're using that as a basis for getting people to want to share those stories more and get more motivated. Telling people that they can also share their stories also inspires others to want to go on those similar journeys and record those successes. So it's not just case studies or stories from the central, but allowing and enabling others to be able to share. I started using ChatGPT, and you can't imagine that work that used to take 10 hours, I'm not doing it in 2 hours. That kind of environment, again, recognizing that we're talking about building a culture that is lasting and sustainable. And then, of course, return on investment. At the end of the day, all of what we're talking about is going to cost money. You need to be able to say, from a cost perspective, this is what you have invested, and this was what you have gotten back, be it tangible or intangible. Because it's not every single thing that you can say that I spent 10 naira and I made 15 naira. But if you're able to say, I made 10 naira, I spent 10 naira, and as a result of spending 10 naira, I was supposed to lose 10 people, I lost 2 people. Then you can begin to see the correlation between that investment. And then, of course, that's the language that the business likes to hear. And the chances are that they will commit and give you more in actualizing all of the things that, you want to achieve. And I think with this, I will stop for now. I've talked about quite a lot. Like I mentioned, it's by no means exhaustive. There's so much to bring to bear, even with the little areas that I've attempted to highlight. And I'm sure that one way or the other, the conversations have piqued our interest a little bit more. And of course, learning, like we said, is continuous. And this hopefully will be the continuation of the beginning of, understanding the role that we are playing in this whole journey. And I think I'll just stop at this time for questions, comments, and feedback. Thank you very much. Over to you, Sean.
Yeah, thank you very much. Um, I mean, that was a wow session. It was really, really a wow session. So please, can we put our digital hands together for our esteemed facilitator? Thank you very much, sir. It was like I'm in a master class, and even though I'm in the digital space myself, I play in this digital space. I've been, jotting things down. My notes are just expanding as you speak. Now, you really open our eyes to some of these issues. Some of the things we even take for granted. As inconsequential as Excel, Microsoft Excel is. We are beginning to see the power that lies within these tools. Now, there is a question here, and it's so gigantic. It says, if your organization's HRIS does not have the necessary functionality for the following functions, how can we leverage digital technology to fulfill these functions? And could you recommend any specific technology that can assist with these tasks? He listed some functions of HR.
Yeah.
He even added HR strategy and planning. I don't think there is a technology that can help with HR strategy and planning. But of course, workforce planning and succession planning, recruitment, talent management, employee onboarding, of course, that technologies for their learning management systems, workforce analytics and reporting, career development and pattern, performance management, etc., etc. So is asking how can we leverage digital technology to fulfill these functions one by one. You mentioned recruitment, ATS, so he wants, and I think we should. They believe so much in Ogun State branch. They called us the learning branch. So it would be nice that they go back home today, feeling fulfilled that what they did not know before, they now know. So, sir, the technologies for each of these functions. Let's not combine everything together and say, just have just carry out digital transformation, have a robust HRIS. I'm in this space. And I know that this HRIS, some of them are extremely expensive. SAP, Oracle, and a host of others. So if the clothes you have and you want to cut your clothes according to your size, and the materials you have maybe within the small bamboo HR kind of HRIS. Now you've acquired that and you say that this guy does not have these other functionalities. What would you advise?
Okay, thank you very much. And I think that's an important question because again, we're talking about context. Like I said, it starts from knowing thyself, which means that you need to be sure what you are able to accommodate. And really, there is a laundry list of applications. I can't begin to, list for each of the areas. But personally, I'm a huge fan of Seamless HR. They're a fast-growing indigenous company that has really, changed the view of HR technology in Nigeria. I was one of the people before now that I was utterly frustrated with, those big systems that are foreign and user support is next to nothing because maybe there's some service provider in Nigeria that has the license, and even them, they don't really know the systems and all of that. So I think over time, if I were to recommend, and I know that they have plans for even smaller companies, depending on, what your capacity and size is. So I would immediately be recommending Seamless HR. And they're able to take organizations as little as 20 employees to as many as you can. However, we also need to have this mindset that as much as you need to have a central HRIS, there are certain things that you might not get in that HRIS that you might need to get smaller systems to help you with. The big key here is integration. How you, for instance, find out that there is a solution that you're using for career management, but the information that solution needs is coming from your HRIS, and your HRIS has been integrated to that small solution using APIs in such a way that, information from the HRIS is flowing to that solution, and information from that solution is flowing back to your HRIS so that you can use it for things like performance management. So yes, it will be important. Nobody will give you a list. And even if they do, you can go through that list and find out that none is applicable. So you're still going to have to do the due diligence that works for you. But like I've said, I recommend Seamless, but with your mandates, go and find out what works for you. At some levels, it could be just individual application of AI tools that, can just help you deal with something that you're working on, as against wanting to go all out HRIS to solve your problems.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Okay, more questions. this one says, if we find ourselves in an unfamiliar industry as an HR officer, how do we identify gaps that we can use digital transformation to drive? I don't know if you understand that question.
Yes, I do. I do. And whether you are in a familiar industry or not, you are talking about going into a new environment, which means that a lot of learning is important. A lot of understanding is important. A lot of research is important. So from the point where you have decided that you are going to join that organization, I think it's a question of going with that mindset of an open book and getting as much information as possible to be able to help. And I know that sometimes we might be under pressure to do things as quickly as possible and achieve. And that's why it's important to categorize what you want to do from a timing perspective, your quick wins, your sense of an operational plan, maybe something that it's, 60 to 90 days. I've seen a question around 90 days, so that might speak to that a little bit. And then maybe your strategic vision and long-term plan. But most importantly, at the beginning of that journey, don't take anything for granted. Gather as much information from as many people as possible. And sometimes as HR people, we don't know that we get information from the most unlikely sources. Day one, resuming and sitting in the waiting room and watching how people are coming to the organization in the morning, whether they sign in or not, the banter when they are coming in already begins to give you insights around the culture. So everybody is a source of information, every report, everything really. And at some point, you'll know when you have enough to be able to begin that journey, like I said, from a quick win perspective. But also recognize that no matter what you think you have validated, it is still subject to revalidation. Something can still happen, especially because of the level of volatility that we are faced in the world of work today. You can have crafted this your 5-year strategy, and 6 months into that strategy, something happens, and then that's your strategy becomes obsolete. So there is that continuous feedback that is important, and then asking yourself that no matter how well you think you have been able to arrive at a solution, something can happen that can throw that solution back to the drawing board. So it's important that you have that, sense of revalidation, gathering data, crafting solutions, revalidating, getting feedback, recrafting. So it's a continuous journey, really.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. This question says, for a person who has an opportunity to execute and build a functioning HR department in a company, what are the practical steps you advise, sir? Possibly a clear 30, 60, 90 days to do's, boxes to check to make ensure digital HR, sir. I'm sure you understand that question.
Okay. I think I can, and I can even just use my own personal experience as an example. Joining the organization I am currently, there was a sense of them being about to commence a human capital transformation exercise. At the same time, the organization was starting its digital transformation journey and all of what they wanted to achieve, both in terms of mindset, but also products and services. So what I started with was getting, like I've just mentioned, as much information as possible on what is going on, the state of the organization, business performance, and then these mandates, what has driven us deciding that we needed to do a human capital transformation program. There was a very deep engagement survey that had happened that was driven by external factors, and there was so much information in my own case that was available. I work in a group of companies, and they were able to drill down even to the various companies and what mattered to them from a people perspective, how HR was performing, what they expected from HR, what they weren't seeing, and all of those kind of things. So there was extensive information that I could use. However, if you are in such environments and we don't, then you have to do the groundwork. And it doesn't necessarily have to be as comprehensive as I've described. Because again, like I said, you can spend so much time on it being comprehensive as something can happen and change it entirely. So, but the idea is really get a sense of what you have gotten yourself into and use that as a basis to now determine your journey. And because it's early days, irrespective of if you know that, yes, you have a sense of your strategy, start from a sense of maybe you joined the organization in July and you want to do certain things between July and December. Quick wins, certain things that already, the little things you have already heard you need to do. Maybe they haven't done promotion for the last 2 years. You need to understand why. And maybe there are some roles that they have been trying to fill for a long time and they haven't filled them, and it's impacting performance. You go ahead and go ahead and engage on those kind of things. Employee engagement is low. People, we don't even know what employee engagement is. So you need to do employee engagement survey. Those little things that you can start operationally that can begin to set context for you, and then use that as a basis to now build a comprehensive longer term plan, but with a sense of still breaking them down into smaller bits. So for instance, I have a 5-year strategy, but I've been broken into a yearly operational plan. And what changes year on year is that operational plan, what I've said I'm going to do for the year, and the experience of doing them over time. The things I'm able to succeed at, meaning that I might not need to do them again because I've done them. The things that we failed or were not able to do, and going back to that strategy and how that strategy can potentially change. I've been running that strategy this is the 4th year, and in the 4th year was when we decided that there was a key element of that strategy that needed to change. But from the beginning, we had a sense of what the strategy was like. But year on year, the operational plan was changing. And then with making progress, with getting feedback, you're tweaking your operational plan. And if for any reason strategy has to change, strategy will change as well. So again, start small, get as much information as you can, start small, begin to execute the quick wins, use those quick wins to validate and feel the pulse of whether you're actually making sense, adding value, and use that as a basis to determine a longer term plan that again will continue to revalidate over time.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. The next one says, I most appreciate you for I don't think you spent up to 45 minutes, so we have enough time for question and answer, which is very good for us. This one says, how can we ensure a smooth transition to new technologies for both HR staff and employees? Did you get that?
Okay, so yes, I did. And I think the key word here is co-creation. Most likely people will buy into something that they had a hand in its definition. So what that essentially means is that, like I've said, everybody needs to understand the need for a digital transformation and what it means for them. In an organization I was part of, it started with, like I said, the digital awareness session. Everybody, this digital thing that we're talking about, what is it? Is it how I use WhatsApp better? Is it how I use Instagram better? Or is it something a lot more detailed? In our context, we need to know what it is. And then in knowing what it is and hearing what people are saying about it, you can now begin to ask, okay, now that I know, okay, that means that, okay, this is my filing problem that I have to come to work Saturday and Sunday. It means that I need to go on a training to be able to transfer all of those things digitally. And then you can now begin to see how the light bulb comes in people's heads, and they are the ones telling you, okay, we need to do this. We need to, get these things happening. Chances are that if you sell something to me in a way that I understand what's in it for me and the value, there will be that innate reaction to making the things happen, as against it being something that HR has come again. They said we should do. What's the name of that platform self that they said we should go and do? They said that if we don't log in there, they will not pay our salary. Instead, the people that are telling you, when are we going live? What are we doing? How are we running this? Because they can see value to themselves. They can see value to the works that they are doing. And ultimately, it would help to drive that culture that would see that natural transition to that digital state or paradigm that you're looking to achieve.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. How can artificial intelligence be leveraged to improve recruitment and talent management processes? There are two questions around AI. Let me just mention the two so that as you're addressing one, you're touching the other. The first one, how can artificial intelligence be leveraged to improve recruitment and talent management processes? And the second one says, how can artificial intelligence and automation be integrated into HR functions without compromising the human touch in employee relations? Those are the two questions.
So yeah, so the second one I think is a very interesting question, because we can't, in this era of wanting to be digital, lose sight of the role that we play. And it is important that you understand, and I think it's also applicable to the answer to the first question. It's important to understand what matters to you and use that as a basis for the adoption of whatever it is that you take up, right? It is very crucial that all of what you're doing doesn't take away, the role as human beings that we play. And that's why, for instance, I talked about knowledge sharing through platforms. You are still sharing the knowledge, you are still having the conversations and the engagements, but you are just using technology to facilitate it in a way that makes it easier. This conversation, for instance, is an example of how technology is making something that would have been a lot more difficult to achieve happen. We are all in the luxury of wherever we are, but we are in the same room and having a conversation, right? So it's important that you recognize that. So the previous question, and how do you leverage? Again, I can't help but go back to repeating, understanding your context and what matters to you personally. For instance, I can be clear that today my adoption of AI is just using ChatGPT. And in itself, if that solves my problems, I don't need to start looking for technology that I know that executive management will tell me that, is this what is most important to me, or is it being able to pay salaries? So we need to know what is important to you at that particular point in time, and that will guide whatever it is you eventually adopt and the journey you go on. Because you don't want to have invested so much because somebody told you that, there's this new application now that if you use it, your work will be this, and you go on that journey, and you do the 6 months, the 6 weeks self-learning course, you have been an expert on it, and that last stage, maybe you even told management, and management has said, fantastic, let's go ahead. And then in doing it, something happens and they tell you they don't have the money for it. Then you find out that you're stranded at the end of the day. So I think it's important that you recognize what is important to you in your practice today and use that as a basis. I personally, for instance, I've been spending a lot of time in using technology to gather continuous feedback from employees, but also generate data that can help me present my business case clearly. So from moving from Excel to moving to Power BI to even having my surveys feeding themselves as against somebody doing the analysis. That's what has been important for me. How am I using technology to improve the experience? And how am I gathering a lot more data that will help me justify the kind of things that I want to do? It is because I know that, for instance, it will cost a lot more for me to have those integrated digital technologies that I can use for career management and what have you. I spent some time convincing my executive management for me to transition to seamless HR, for instance. So I spent that time trying to convince management by doing other things. I'm not necessarily saying, okay, seamless maybe cost 10 naira. Let me go and start looking for something that will cost 5 naira, because I knew that my management weren't ready to move because we just invested in some system that clearly wasn't working. So I think it's important that you know thyself, and then you take it from what will help you achieve the desired result for that point in time, and then you can transition.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. This one says, how can digital technology help in creating a more inclusive and diverse workplace culture?
Okay, so it might sound like a natural response to all of the questions, but honestly, knowing yourself is always the best place to start. So when you're talking about inclusion, when you're talking about diversity, when you're talking about all of the things you're talking about, you need to even know what constitutes, your demographic. When you're talking about wanting to be diverse, you can't just take that, okay, they are saying that it is gender diversity that is important to everybody now. So you are focusing on how many men you have versus how many women. Whereas your culture has indicated qualitatively that, for instance, maybe you have a tribal issue and your organization is seen as a Yoruba organization or is seen as an Igbo organization, and what your mandate at that particular point in time should be dealing with that issue. There's also the question of inclusion and how you arrive at decision making to the point where everybody feels like, whether you like it or not, whatever we say, it is Kunle that will determine what will happen. It is these guys that are close to management that ultimately they listen to. Whatever I say will not matter. So it's important that you even let your data speak to the mandates that are ahead of you, from this inclusion, this diversity, and things that we are seeing coming into the workplace. And then that can now drive the strategy and then the kind of tools that you would use. But there are so many collaborative tools that we have today. Not so many people know about a tool called Yammer. It's a Microsoft tool that is like an internal Facebook. So it is a platform where people can share you can post whatever you like, you can share experiences, you can have polls. There's so many things that you can do there, right? So it almost feels like you have a LinkedIn for your company. So those are the kind of tools that, for instance, when you have decided that this is your mandate, you can then explore different things that can help you drive that mandate based on what it is that you say you want to achieve. But I can't stress knowing yourself. And that is a question of both quantitative and qualitative feedback that will drive what you would then need to go and do.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. A few more questions because we need to be out in the next few minutes. Okay, please, sir, how do you draw a clearer HR metrics for HR operations efficiency in a service-oriented industry?
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
How do you draw a clearer HR metrics for HR operations efficiency in a service-oriented industry? Do you understand that?
Yes, I do. I do.
Okay.
Just using the fact that you're talking about a service-oriented industry means that you are providing service. And what are the things that are important when you provide service? Quality and timing. Those are the two most critical issues when you're dealing with service. Are you delivering the service at the speed at which it is required based on expectations? And are you providing it at a quality that ensures that the customer is satisfied? There's the emotional part of satisfaction and whether you would come again, but ultimately that's driven by those two perspectives. So I think as HR, you need to be asking yourself, what are you putting in place to ensure that, for instance, when you receive 10 requests and you have defined SLAs for those requests, you're able to determine how efficient you are in meeting those expectations. And again, in the light of digital, we are talking about that as a demand. And the simple response would be, what search engines, what service engines exist that you can leverage in? So that, for instance, when people are coming to HR for the things that they need, they are not coming to you by calling you on the phone or sending you WhatsApp or even sending emails. There's a platform where they are logging those requests, and whoever is supposed to deal with them gets the notification that you are being efficient at what you are doing. You may be measuring error rates, you can be measuring number of reworks, you can be asking. Okay, apologies. I had a network disconnection. So ultimately, right. I think I've answered that question. I don't know whether there's any other question.
Yes, we'll just do about two more, and then we go. Let me recognize first. Is it Mr. or Mrs. Tega? Please, you have the floor. Tega Olohua. Tega?
Okay. Yeah. Good afternoon.
Okay. Good afternoon.
Mrs.
All right.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Siana. Thank you for all you do in Ogun State in trying to keep HR learning activity burning. Thank you also, Mr. Dare, for the well-delivered lecture and for trying to make it authentic and so real. So I decided to ask this question, speaking because I couldn't really put all in typing. Now, we know the place of digital means in trying to carry out our processes. We understand the advantage that is in it, so enormous, and it's just awesome. But I'm just looking at the negative aspect of it. For instance, we're talking about digital means. It is humans, like someone asked a question where we can differentiate, that will also drive this process. And so where can we actually, draw the line where we have the same humans controlling these digital means, sabotaging the process? What can we do to check that? Like it's happening everywhere, even in our social media, in reality, like we could see. A very good plan is on ground, but we still have people that are supposed to control these digital means, humans sabotaging it. So that's really my concern. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And I think first of all, it usually comes from a perspective of fear of the unknown. So there is that sense, for instance, that technology is here to come and take over people's jobs. And that is why there's usually that resistance. And that was why I made the joke about laundry and AI and what have you. But I think it is from a lack of not knowing and also not being carried along. Because, for instance, all of us know that it will take a longer time and it will be more painful if you walk a far distance as against taking a vehicle. I mean, it's second nature to all of us. If you want to go from Lagos to Abeokuta, you know that if you are going to walk, you will explain. But you know that if you drive, it will take a shorter period. You don't need anybody to tell you. So I think that's where we need to get with our people understanding why we are doing some of these things. And that's why, I talked about understanding the need and then co-creating and carrying along. It is only when you know that you have explored all of that, it is clear people are part of the process, and then you still have your protagonists. Then those are the people in your environment that are anti the culture that you're looking to, build and grow. And then, paying particular attention to them, trying to make them see reason, telling them that it's not a question of, consequence, but it's more a question of carrying you along and trying to see things from their perspective. And maybe if all of the efforts you've been making, you've not carried them along, and that's why they feel neglected. But, bring them into the fold because you have identified them and you can speak to them in a way that you ordinarily would not with your early adopters. But honestly, you would also have to draw the line because there will not be chances are that you wouldn't always have 100% participation or commitment. When you know you have explored all avenues and you are getting the value, then you now start asking yourself, do you want to live with having those protagonists? Or do you really need to make a judgment call because they are being too toxic and you really need to just let them go? Because whether you like it or not, especially in this part of the world, we are not all going to be on this transformation journey. Some people will still tell you, bring the file to me to sign. The organ that approved that we should do the digital transformation project is still the same organ that will tell you that you should bring the memo, hard copy for him to sign. Do you understand? So, but just recognize, carry them along, and then when it's becoming too difficult to deal with, ask yourself what you need to do and be true to that decision. Okay. Sean, back to you. Any more questions?
So sorry, my network was disrupted. Thank you very much. I think you are done, sir, right?
Yes, I see one question. Somebody asking about what are the available AI that can be explored for the HR. Yeah, so there's so many. And that's why I said there, you will need to know what you need to use it for and what you want to, and how you want to use it. There are content PowerPoint generators, for instance. There are platforms that you would log into, you just put in the topic and it will generate your slides for you. There are applications that you will just put in your data from an engagement survey, and it will analyze the feedback for you, right? It will show you the bad chat. It will do everything for you. So it depends on what you want to do. But you can ask ChatGPT to tell you what the platform that you can use to do other things. That's even what is really funny. You can use ChatGPT to determine what is available for you to use to, achieve other things.
Okay, thank you very much. Please, can we put our digital hands together for our facilitator? Please, let's just put it together. Thank you very much. A quick announcement before we're going to appreciate you shortly. Now, there is a WhatsApp community that we created, not Ogun State CIPM, because we can't bring you to CIPM Ogun State branch WhatsApp community without paying our dues. You need to be a member before we put you. But at our own end, we have created a WhatsApp community just to keep all of us together. The who is who in the industry, they are there on that platform. So you can provide career counsel and receive career counsel. So when you now make up your mind that you want to join Ogun State branch, you pay our dues, you go through the process, and then we can now move you from that WhatsApp group to the CIPM Ogun State WhatsApp group. So I'm sharing the link now because that's the only way we can reach you. Some of you, we have to send mails. We have to, Ojuwari before we got to you today. So we don't want to be looking for you again when next we have an event. We're having one tomorrow. They call us a learning branch, because we are always learning. Today, you've learned a lot. I've learned a lot too, even though I'm a digital transformation person, but, we know they know finish. So as we expose ourselves to more insights from those that have gone ahead of us, we become more robust. We want to appreciate you, sir. Please, guys, don't go. There is a gift I have for you. Let me share my screen because we want to especially appreciate you, sir, for those insights. Thank you very much. And this is for you. Please, can we put our hands together again for our esteemed facilitator, an accomplished HR professional. Thank you very much, sir. And this certificate of appreciation is presented to you in recognition of your invaluable contribution as a resource speaker at our professional development course on strategic HR in the digital age, and it's presented today, 4th June 2024, and signed by my humble self. So I know there's no amount of money we give you that is enough. You're already the biggest.
Oh, there is. I can tell you. I can tell you.
You are the biggest bird in town. But this one is very powerful. If you are going, when you are going to the embassy, just send it there. And tell them you facilitated, a course for CIPM Ogun State branch. You see that they won't even need to check your documents. They'll just pass you because of this certificate. We can't appreciate you enough, and we deeply treasure. Before we finish in the next 5 minutes, we have an announcement to pass across to our people. But it's a good time for you to take a bow. So any final word from you, and then you can take a bow, and then we address our people, and then we go.
Okay, so thank you very much. I don't take for granted the opportunity. For me, it's as much learning for me to repeat the number of the things I say, because even if I am just, speaking theoretically, it's also for me to go back and see how I can also improve what I do. So I don't take it for granted. Like I said, it's personal, a bit personal that it's the Ogun State branch, recognizing that I come from Ogun State. So thank you for the opportunity. I'm available if for any reason, irrespective of the fact that I work out of Lagos, I live in Lagos, I'm a member from Lagos, but I'm available to the Ogun State chapter if for any reason you feel the need for me to be part of anything. And then for as many people that want to continue the conversations on a private or individual level, my LinkedIn profile is there. I make it a duty to respond to every single message I receive. And I try to do so as quickly as possible. So you can reach out there, you can send messages, and if there's the need to have, more informed conversations, we can take it from there. At the end of the day, we're all helping ourselves to be better HR people and better citizens of this our great country. So thank you so much for the invitation again, Sean. And I look forward to doing more. Thank you,
Thank you.
and all the best, everyone.